Yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Pixelists. That's Blake. I'm Will. Tonight, or today, this afternoon, we're here to talk about Critical Role, baby. Episode 8, I believe.
Yeah, boy.
Yeah.
Episode 8.
How you doing, man?
I'm good. We're almost to our first 10 eps. So
I know.
I'm hanging in there.
That's crazy. It's
If I take one more step, I'll be the furthest I've ever been from.
Wait, is that true though? How far did you?
I think like episode 18 or 19
Okay,
from
so
first campaign.
we still got a ways.
This is about when I fell off on campaign 2.
Okay.
So the average in there is about 12 or 13.
Yeah.
So,
All right, we're approaching. We're approaching.
yeah. I got the added accountability of the YouTube channel, I guess.
That was really the plan all along. It was just a long con to get you to stay in it for the long haul.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to be here and welcome all of you who are checking out the podcast and just enjoying the fun stuff that is D&D nerdage. So that's our plan today. So is to talk about episode 8, and we'd like to talk about whatever game, shows, movies, what have you that we really enjoy. And I think we decided we're gonna do an entire season wrap up of The Witcher, which is live, by the way. Have you watched any of it yet?
I've watched one episode. I'm trying to pace myself so I don't just binge it all. I'm gonna try to do it over until Christmas, basically.
Oh, you naive soul! You
Have
can't
you watched-
resist the binge.
Have you watched it?
Not yet, because I haven't been able to to sit down to binge it.
Yeah.
So we're gonna do that. We're gonna, I think, do Hawkeye, which has one episode left at the time of recording this, and it's getting kind of good. And it's been good, but other than that, and we'll have to do a Spider-Man one too, right?
I mean, I'm down. I've seen it, so I'm ready. I'm ready.
Oh, you've seen it?
About it? Yeah.
Okay. All right, cool. All right. Well, let's talk about episode 8 of Critical Role. And by the way, if you're just now tuning in, this we like to do a recap at the start and talk about all the things that happened that we noticed, and then we actually pull this out as a separate video. So if you're just watching just the recap, you can definitely check the link below to see the main video where we give our reaction and discuss the whole thing. So having said that, are we ready to jump in?
Yeah. Is that squeaking stop? Because I think it was my fan.
Yes.
Okay.
It did stop.
Just wanted to make sure.
It was like squeak, squeak. I was like,
okay,
it's driving me crazy. The podcast listeners are like, I hate this show.
What is this happening?
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll get us started. So this episode, we open up just where the previous episode left off, where the party has finished basically saving the Dreamscape Theater, and they've encountered this small character known as Chetney, this roguish character in the alley outside of or nearby the theater. And Chetney's been kind of scoping them out, seeing what's going on. And we actually do come to find out that Chetney is looking for someone. And the reason he's so curious about the party in particular is because he overheard, and it's not clear if he actually overheard or if he was doing rogue-like things, because he mentions the guy who paid you all that money, which that happened in his office. But basically says, I mean, I know you guys were helping the Dreamscape Theater. You were looking for people, so maybe you can help me find my friends. And the party does point out that, well, everyone we've found so far is dead. So I don't know how well that means for you. But they agree to all go back to the Spire by Fire and learn more about Chetney and also this person in particular that they're looking for. So they head back to the Spire by Fire, and they decide it would be a bit naive for everyone just to grab drinks and just kind of social with Chetney. So they send up Laudna and Fresh Cut Grass to play this, what they call good warden, bad warden, the wardens being the guards of the town, to get some information out of him. It's a really great scene. Fresh Cut Grass is the bad warden and is trying to be really intimidating, even spinning his saw blade. And Chetney's kind of like, are you good? Is that supposed to do that? And they're asking a lot of questions, and Chetney's being a bit evasive, or rather very vague. Like, yeah, I was sent here. I'm supposed to be meeting someone. They didn't show up. And like, why are we at the Dreamscape Theater? Oh, well, that person likes the theater. And it finally, they're not making any headway until finally they kind of just call everyone up and they're like, okay, this isn't working. Also through this whole like walk and talk back to the Spire, and then at the Spire, Travis is just destined to play an old person really well because not only is he hilarious as Chetney, but also he just plays a perfect crotchety old person.
Yeah.
Constantly annoyed at Dorian. It's hilarious. Dorian's like, hey, I really like your woodworking tools. And he's like, so, like, what's that supposed to mean? So Chetney's very abrasive towards Dorian. It's really funny, to the point where everyone's kind of like, hey, will you be nice to Dorian? Like, he's just trying to be friendly to you. And Chetney basically reveals that he is a master woodworker, or a master craftsman, actually, also known as an MC.
Yeah.
And there's some funny comments around that. Through their dialogue, they find out that he is actually from Wildmount, excuse me. And he's was basically sent over from a craftsman's guild, which he also, it seems like, mentions a detail around him sort of losing his status there. So he was sent here to meet someone named Gurge, who is a person who lives in the Smolder Spire and is supposed to meet up with him and then introduce him to another group of master craftsmen here in Marquette. So he's basically here looking for work. Yeah. And Gurge, for whatever reason, has disappeared. Chetney doesn't know anything else other than he just didn't show up one day. And again, the party is really trying to mine for more information. And Chetney's like, I don't really know the guy. I was sent here. I'm here to meet the guy to set me up for a next job. That's really all I know, but I'm worried that maybe something bad might have happened to him. And the party even asked questions like, maybe he got arrested. Did you check like the stockade, like prison or whatever? And he's like, no, I didn't check any of that. I went to the theater because I knew he liked the theater. He also, in talking with the party, he's like, how much is it going to cost? And the party's like, well, what's your specialty? And he's like, I'm really good at crafting toys. And so they all basically make a bargain of, instead of gold, he's going to pay the party in specific types of wooden toys that they've asked for. And Dorian, by the way, does ask for an airship that he asked for an airship, like a model airship that has like broomstone on the bottom and that he can cause like to levitate and fly, which only antagonizes Chetney even more, who's like, I only use wood. I don't use any of the other crap in my stuff.
Yeah.
And actually, now that I think about it, I think he said the reason that he had kind of lost favor in his previous job was because they had started using like metal or like other materials. I can't remember if that's true or not. I don't know if you remember.
Yeah, I don't think he gave like explicit details on what, but he's like, yeah, they decided to move in a new direction, like presumably away from wood.
Right. And he's almost like horrified. Like, how could they? Yeah. They're not deserving. But he also does ask the party for like the quick and dirty of everyone else.
Yeah.
And they all kind of give like their version of like who they are. And it's also at this point that Matt gets up and walks over to Liam O'Brien, who has a high passive perception, by the way, and whispers something in his ear. And Fresh Cut Grass points out, or Sam Riegel points out, like, okay, hang on, we're getting a whisper for no reason. Like, no one's rolled a perception check or anything. So it's really intriguing.
An unsolicited whisper.
Yeah. And Orem points out, and he actually puts a hand on Imogen's arm and does like a mental connection and says that the person that they saw in the theater that they had chased after, the mysterious figure, this person was actually sitting down on the first floor of the tavern. It has like an open balcony that they're sitting on. This person's sitting down on the first floor and has followed them there, basically. They decide just to be like, hey man, like, we see you, just, just stop this whole act. And the person immediately like ducks out of the tavern. Not before Laudna and Imogen both like start whispering in his ear or doing like the, message and the mind link, which totally freaks him out. Orem and Chetney decide to follow him. And basically what ends up happening is, long story short, they have to do a couple of stealth checks and eventually come to a point a little bit of a ways away from the Spire by Fire where Orem actually is like just sort of like shot in the dark. He just goes, "Hey, come on, man. Like we're like
Come
we've
on,
been chasing
bro.
for a while now." And it was a really funny scene where like Matt was like, "Hey, I'm glad like we're giving up on like on the high chase fantasy and just being like, seriously, dude, like please."
It's late.
Only rolls like a 4 on the perception or on the persuasion. And but all this to say, uh the NPC, this character, does stop and, not facing the party, basically says, "I'm just here to talk to your blue friend, to talk to Dorian." And it is clear at this point that this is someone who appears to be a Corsair, a Hubot Corsair, as well as also for sure being the person that they had clocked in the theater before. So they go back, they get Dorian, who Laden is like, "Oh, another fan. Wow." And he's like, "Yeah, I don't know." And basically they come back to this person, and the character turns to face Dorian, and it is his brother, Cyrus Wyvernwind. And it's a really funny scene because they're like, "How do you know Dorian?" And he's like, Dorian,
Yeah,
right.
Dorian, right, yeah.
Which we know from EXU that Dorian is his stage name, and his real name is Bronte. He goes by Bron. So they're like, "Yeah, Dorian Storm." And he's like, "Right, Storm.
I'm Cyrus
Yeah,
Storm.
I'm Cyrus Storm." It's a really funny scene. And basically, Cyrus is like, "Can you trust these people? Like, what do you like? Who are these people?" And Dorian actually says, "I'm not sure." He doesn't say like, "Yes, you absolutely can." He's like, I'm not really sure."
Yeah.
And basically, they say, Cyrus is like, "Yeah, I actually am a Hubot Corsair. Like, they've treated me really well." And they decide, you know what? Let's go back to the Spire by Fire and let's actually talk more about this. They go back. We get this really awesome lore dump where we find out that even though Dorian has said they aren't royalty, they absolutely are part of like this. Think of it as like a sage-like entity within the Air Genasi, where people over the years have relied on his family for wisdom and counsel, and kind of like the, I don't know if it's like a spoken leadership, but definitely like those are like the heads of our people.
Mm-hmm.
They also find out that the Air Genasi seem to have always taken a sort of pilgrimage. So Dorian having left, even though it seemed like a rarity, Cyrus mentions that, "Hey, did you know Mom and Dad, they also took a pilgrimage of their own, a journey of their own." And this kind of calls back to the comment on like, "Our people are destined to wander," is a comment that was made in a
Yeah.
previous episode. We also find out that um, someone had a great comment about it, maybe being the plane of air. And Cyrus points out that actually, I think even Dory maybe mentions it, that their hometown, so to speak, is a floating tent city, which is
Yeah.
like, wait, what? And people are like, "Yeah, so like, would you see it if it was like flying by?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, totally." Like, you'd be like, "Yeah, there's the flying tent city." And it's called the Silken Squall. Is that
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So they're
Yeah.
from the Silken Squall is basically what it's called. And one of the reasons why they're having this conversation also is, which by the way, Robbie Damon does a phenomenal job just representing this bitterness towards his brother. It's clear like his brother, the older brother, maybe even the taller, like charismatic, good-looking brother, has really
Yeah.
kind of always been the golden child. So he's really frustrated to see that Cyrus has also left, like kind of like stealing his thunder of being the brother who left first.
Yeah.
And what ends up happening is Cyrus is like, "Yeah, like, I'm sorry I was a bad brother, but I'm in a little bit of trouble." And Dorian's like, "Oh, do you need money? Like, come on, man. Like, what are you
Yeah.
doing?" And Cyrus basically is like, "Yeah, I do need a little bit of money. I'm not asking you for any," but basically shares about how he was very green coming out of the Silken Squall and kind of wanted to rightly points out, like, if we're supposed to be leading Air Genasi all over the world, like, how can we do that if we don't even understand the world?
Right.
So he basically got out, took some odd jobs, was kind of trying to like experience life as a normal person. And he was on a job where basically he was tasked with escorting a caravan. And what ended up happening was this caravan got attacked by a band of thieves led by a person named Nova. And what they did was, as they attacked the caravan, there was this big crate with the initials. Was it G? Did we say JH or JE?
I think it's JH.
Okay, JH. So a box with the initials JH, and this caravan apparently is owned by the Gold Guild of Treshy, which also the Treshy House also ran the Masons Guild that put in the wall, or the repairs, excuse me, at the Dreamscape Theater.
Yeah.
So apparently a very well-known guild, or well-known house. But out of this box came a large golem that seemed to be working for the thieves, and essentially ran off with them. And Cyrus took the fall for it. And they're like, well, okay, so, I mean, how much money's on your head? And I think he says 20,000 or 25,000 gold pieces.
Yeah.
I mean, like, it was a great moment because everyone was like, yeah, how bad could it be? And he's like, 20,000. They're like, whoa, okay. And they're also like, why are you here?
Yeah,
like, you shouldn't be here. Yeah, you need to go home and like not leave the Hubot Corsairs. And he actually points out, like, have they not wanted to turn you in? And he's like, no, they've been really good to me. Like, they've really taken care of me.
Yeah.
And they've actually been protecting me. So, they continue this conversation, and they decide, you should probably go back to the Hubot Corsairs. But Cyrus does something interesting. He asks Dorian to promise him, if something happens to me, you're going to be needed back home as the next in line. And Dorian's like, what? Like, no, like, come on, man. Like, don't talk to me that way. Dorian actually decides to walk him back to the Hubot Corsairs over in the Lantern Spire, and takes with him one of the sending stones and actually gives it to Cyrus. Like, and basically says, hey, if you need us, if anything happens, call us and tell us. And Cyrus does mention that when he was younger, he had a pet rock, and Dorian jokes that he killed it. And so when he gets the sending stone, he's like, oh my gosh, your lucky rock. Thank you. And then Dorian walks back alone and gets there totally fine. Yeah. So that's pretty much what happened on the first half. Did I miss any big details?
I don't think so. Thank you.
Okay.
You hit the bullet points.
Yeah. Do you want to hit the second half?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, like Blake mentioned, Dorian makes it back, and essentially everyone just goes to sleep for the night. And they wake up, have breakfast, and Chetney apparently just slept in like the lobby of the tavern. He didn't get a room. He was like, yeah, just throw a cloak on top of me, and I'm good for the night. He's like, it pays not to be seen, which kind of just like playing into his roguish character. But Fern's like, you could sleep with me next time. And he's like, oh, really? He's like, yeah, sure. And he takes her up on that offer.
Old dude. That's what I took from that.
And so, they're all eating breakfast, kind of catching up still a little bit. And the party asks Dorian, he's like, hey, so should we call you Dorian or should we call you Bronte? And he's like, yeah, call me Dorian. And they're like, oh, okay. And they're kind of sitting trying to figure out like what they should do with the day in front of them. And Dorian says that, you know what, like Cyrus with the Corsairs, like he's probably fine for now. So we can focus on this Chetney Gurge thing. And so with that being what they decide to do, Chetney offers to take them to Gurge's house, and they can kind of start their investigation there to try to figure out what happened to them. But as they're having this conversation, they notice there's like a commotion near the entrance to the tavern. And there seems to be a group of people that look to be like miners, all having a kind of loud conversation saying like, oh, this is bullshit. And, the whole city's falling apart. We need to find a new place to go. And so the party takes notice of this, and they actually notice a cloaked individual go up to the notice board and nail in something. So Ashton grabs the flyer, and the party reads it. And it's basically this flyer that's just asking for skilled, like abled people to protect against the Hubot Corsairs. And it basically lambasts the Wilders for not doing their job and saying that, the city's getting out of control. Somebody's got to do something about this. And it actually calls for the aid of the Paragons' Call. And we find out that the Paragons' Call is like this mercenary group that basically came to fame about 20 years ago during a big conflict in the Hellcatch Valley. And they're known for doing whatever it takes to get the job done, as long as the price is right, as long as they're paid.
Right.
And Imogen basically wonders, if the Paragon's Call is trying to like take over the city in like a coup kind of, as this flyer demands they be given authority. And they kind of wonder like, since the party's familiar with the Corsairs, they're kind of like, well, what is this flyer about? Like maybe the
Mhm.
Corsairs are like this Robin Hood figure, and perhaps the Paragon's Call may be like the rich person's response, like, maybe trying to
Yeah,
the
like the
wealthy,
neighborhood's
the
watch.
yeah, yeah.
Or whatever the
and
comment was. Like the
and
neighborhood sucks. Whatever.
so they're just trying to figure out what this all may mean. And the group of miners that were kind of causing this whole commotion were basically just talking about how they don't really feel safe in the city anymore with all these like warring factions, and they're talking about maybe leaving and finding work elsewhere.
Right.
um Then Laudna just kind of asks Ashton if they've ever had a bounty on their head, given the conversation with Cyrus the night before, and she's wondering like how bounties work. And Ashton says, yeah, like probably a couple, honestly.
Hmm.
And Laudna asks like, were they resolved? Like, what do you do? And Ashton says that if you get caught, you pay the bounty off. They don't really want you; they want their money.
Right.
Otherwise, they'll take your life. So that's kind of like the trade-off. So they're less concerned with getting you; they're more concerned with just getting their money. Um, anyway, the party then decides to head to the Smolder Spire, which is where Chetney is showing them that Gurge stays. They take a cable car over there, and a few members of the party are like pretty nervous about like what it would mean if something were to go wrong and they would fall. Imogen being one of them that's quite nervous, but F.C.G. Casts calm emotions on her and kind of helps her get through it. And when they get off on the other side, there's like a big automaton that's like cranking this wheel that's basically powering the cable cars going back and forth. And F.C.G. says, like smiley day or hi or something to it. And it just no response at all.
Hmm.
And they just make the comment like, yeah, he's not really like you, huh? And anyway, so they make their way to Gurge's hovel, and Chetney runs up and is like, Gurge, no response. The door's locked, but Chetney does pick it. They break in, get inside, and they basically start investigating. And there's like upturned furniture, and the place is basically a mess. It looks as if there was some sort of struggle here, and they first and foremost check for the shade creeper tunnels and see if there's anything like that going on, and there's not. But there are like these thick gashes in the wall and what appear to be claw marks. And Laudna goes outside to see if she can see anything outside of the house. And a half-elven woman comes up to her, named Sirach, and she's like, "What are you guys doing here?" And we come to find out she's like the landlord of this place. She rented it to Gurge, and she's looking for him because he hasn't paid her. And the party basically learned from her that there was a direwolf attack here, which explains the claw marks and everything inside.
Yeah.
And
Kind of
apparently the
random.
yeah, apparently the wardens came through, put the wolves down, and that was that. And Sirach basically just wants her money and is like, what, like basically is trying to put the onus on the party, being like, "Are you gonna pay me?" And
Right.
they're like, "No, like, listen, we'll find Gurge, you'll get your money. We have nothing to do with this." Um, and she's like, "Okay." Um, and Chetney, while this is all happening, is kind of like explaining more about Gurge and says that, yeah, he usually lives out in the jungle, like in the wilds. This was just his office. And he was like, yeah, the Master Craftsman's Guild sent me down here, after I got kicked out. And Gurge was basically supposed to help me find a new job. And yeah, Blake already mentioned this, but he basically just talks about that his previous employer, had a change in direction, and he basically just felt like he wasn't needed or wanted anymore.
Right.
And so they kind of, having found out the direwolf thing, pretty much that's all they get from visiting his house. And so they decide to head toward the wardens because someone, I think it was Dorian, maybe had the idea that let's check the jail, like maybe he's there, especially since the wardens were here dealing with those direwolves. So they head that way, and they actually find two wardens like standing guard, and they ask about the direwolf attack, and the guard's like, yeah, that totally happened. And Imogen's like, well, is anyone getting medical treatment or anything? Because we're looking for someone. And at mention of that, one of the wardens goes inside to talk to a superior, and the one that stayed behind's like, oh, well, who's your friend? And they tell him the name Gurge, and he's being kind of like what's the word? Guarded, for no pun
Yeah.
intended. And so F.C.G decides to cast Detect Thoughts to get into his head. And the guard is basically thinking about, like, wait, who are these people? How do they know Gurge? I need to talk to my boss about this. And so they can tell he's being kind of shady, and he soon leaves to go inside as well. And so F.C.G tells the party like what he heard through thinking about his thoughts, and he's like, yeah, I think they're hiding something. So Fern decides to turn into a rat and follow them inside. She kind of crawls through, and inside, the two guards have kind of gone further back into this chamber and finally up through a room where there is, like, presumably their boss, who is like sitting down behind a desk, and they close the door behind them. Fern just manages to like scoot under the door to be inside there and listen. And the one in command basically tells the two subordinates that, like, hey, Gurge has been arrested, he'll be released, and it's none of their business really. He's like, I'll take care of the rest. He's like, you two, you officially know nothing about this. Stop answering questions about it. And he basically is like kind of being pretty harsh on him. So then the guards move to exit the room, and as they do, Fern is told to make a dexterity saving throw, and she actually fails. So one of the guards actually steps on her as a rat, and she takes a point of damage. And her rat form only has 1 HP, so because of that, the rat form poofs away, and there Fern stands in all her glory, just straight there, right in front of these wardens and their boss. And that's where the episode ends. We're left on that cliffhanger.
But Ashley Johnson does promise us, I have a plan.
We'll see.
Yeah, and I forgot one detail as I was thinking about it. I did forget to mention that the initials on the golem crate that got broken out by Nova earlier, Cyrus' story, that the same initials Imogen mentions to Ashton, that letter that he received in his room that he highly redacted, that she says, hey, I saw the initials and saw that was also JH. It sounds like it's connected, and Ashton basically is fairly nervous, which is interesting how confident he is, but he says, like, I hope not. I hope it's not related, but we still shouldn't really mess with that. That was the only detail that I forgot to mention.
The plot thickens.
Yeah. So that was episode 8. It's the last one of 2021. Oof, feels bad.
I know.
But I am excited for the next one. And again, by the way, if you're just watching this recap at the bottom, you can see the link to the full video. So, Will, reactions, my friend. What'd you think of the episode?
I liked it. I mean, I'm gonna be hard pressed to find an episode I don't like. This was a slower episode in terms of not much happened really, but we got a lot of juicy information via Cyrus and Dorian. So I really enjoyed that. I always love backstory drops.
Good RP sesh.
Exactly. So when I say slow and that not much happened, I don't mean that as like a detriment, because I loved what we got. But in terms of like, really noticeably progressing the story forward, not much happened. But we got left on an awesome cliffhanger, and there were some really fantastic moments. I mean, props to Travis, really. Like, it was so funny. Like, I was crying laughing in that first half.
Yeah, my wife and I, we were just in tears watching it for sure.
Yeah,
it was so funny. And Dorian's reactions to getting like yelled at, I mean, they hammed it up really well.
It was great. So yeah, I love the episode. But it's sad that we gotta wait a few weeks to see what happens. But what about you?
I loved it. Like I said, my wife and I like couldn't stop laughing. Loved it. I love Robbie Daymond, and so getting more of his backstory was really great. So that was really fun. It was just really cool. Like, again, it's interesting how we keep getting like these plot threads that pop up. I kind of think of like a if you've ever like I don't know, tried to like wind or wrap a bunch of rubber bands, and like sometimes like one will like fling out or pop out or kind of spirals out.
Yeah.
And it feels like as we're unpacking the story, like these other plot threads are opening up, but it doesn't feel clunky or too much. And I know that was one of our mutual criticisms with EXU, was the interconnectedness didn't necessarily feel present.
Right.
In this case, it feels like we keep getting more breadcrumbs that just seem to make sense. It just seems to, it doesn't feel like distracting, I guess, if that makes sense. And
Hmm.
so getting that whole lore drop on Dorian's backstory, really liked one of the commenters in our previous video who threw out the idea that maybe it was the plane of air. And I really liked that theory. And I'm really curious about this floating city. It's pretty interesting. And just the lore behind the air genasi was really intriguing, but great episode. Really funny. Chetney's hilarious. And I'm super bummed. I mean, yeah, we got how long till the next episode? 1, 2, 3. Yeah, 3 weeks. So it's gonna be painful to wait.
Yeah. So is it the 6th? I guess that was that when they said.
Be the 6th, yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, just under 3 weeks.
Well,
So we need to come up with some content then.
I know we have one thing,
Yeah.
but we might
yeah.
need to think of something else. Well, I guess never mind. I don't know. We'll think of something maybe
Yeah.
for that other week.
But yeah, all that to say, love the episode. It was really great.
Yeah.
And like
too.
you said, I think I'm an unabashedly
Yeah.
big fan of Critical Role. So it would have to be a really bad episode for probably me to have a problem with it.
Yeah.
So I will gladly admit that I am super unbiased or super biased, excuse me, for CR. But so many other interesting breadcrumbs. Like I just want to know the story. Like, you know, the JH initials was really interesting.
Yeah.
The Gurge thing, which the phrasing confused me because they went to a factory, and I thought maybe it was like a factory that like maybe doubled as a prison or something, but that detail was really unclear to me. And then the other detail that was unclear was the manager person wasn't actually telling the guards, "Hey, we arrested Gurge." He was just saying, "Go tell them that Gurge has been arrested," right?
Oh, I don't know.
Because I think he was saying, just tell them that Gurge has been arrested and we can't release him, and then don't answer any other questions. Like, I'll handle it.
Okay.
That's the impression I got. I don't know if that's actually the case.
That's possible. I mean, I haven't like rewatched it, so I'm only based off that like one first time. So that would make sense that he was just like trying to get them off his tail. Yeah. I guess should we just talk about, I don't know, what to talk about first, I guess. Let's talk about that since we're already kind of talking about it. So you mentioned the factory part. I actually didn't include that in the recap because my notes confused me. So I was just like, I'm just gonna say they went to talk to those wardens, which is what they did.
Yeah,
but
the wardens are. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying I had factory written down too, but since that's all I had in my notes, I was like, wait, what? They went. It says factory, but they went to talk to the wardens, so I was confused.
Here's my impression of the factory is we got some backstory on how the smolder spire it's taking like precious metals and like outputting something from that. And nothing, I'm not being purposely vague. I mean, Matt mentions like coal and like other metals and things like that, but it may be a bit of like the money producing like the output part of Drusar. And so my impression was a factory that people worked in, but also was managed by or protected by the wardens.
Okay.
Because there's even a point where the wardens, when they're put off by this party, they go inside and they like shut like this metal door. And I couldn't tell if it was an employee or like a bystander, but they were like, "Hey, why are you closing? Like, what's going on?" And the guard was like, "Don't worry about it. Like, it's fine. Like, we're just shutting things down for a minute."
Right.
So I have the impression that it's some kind of like warden owned or managed facility. But there wasn't a lot of details, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, that's why I was confused. But I guess at least at this juncture, I guess it's not important. Maybe it'll become clearer as we go. But yeah, I was wondering about that. So I guess my implication walking away from it was that he was arrested and that the leader was saying, you know, he'll be released soon, like just, you know, whatever. But you're saying that you think he was just lying and say like just tell them he was arrested, but he wasn't.
Yeah, I think the phrasing that stood out to me, I think the guy the guard who had detect thoughts. I don't think so my impression that he didn't say, "Oh, how do they know Gurge?" But he said, "How do they know this person, Gurge?" Like even implying that maybe he himself doesn't know who Gurge is. Mm-hmm. And then I think the manager person they went to said, just go tell them he's been arrested, I think was the
Okay.
phrasing. Tell them they've been arrested and then don't answer any more questions. And like, you guys stop being such idiots. Like, why are you even entertaining talking to these people?
Yeah.
Which seems very nefarious. But yeah, so I don't think it was, oh, well, Gurge has been arrested, guys. Don't tell them that. You know, I think it was like, just get them off our back, like stall them. Which, you know, kind of begs the question, like, what are they hiding, right? And how strange it is that there's dire wolves up in a spire, like way above the jungle.
Yeah. So all this fishiness is making me think that, all right, the story we were presented was dire wolves attacked Gurge's house. The Wardens came and took care of it, and then for whatever reason, the Wardens took Gurge from that. But to me, since there's this shadiness with the Wardens around Gurge, I'm wondering if there ever was a direwolf attack. Like maybe that was just the story.
Sirach didn't even know that there was a direwolf attack in her home that she was renting to Gurge. She mentions that the direwolf attack actually happened like down the street, and so we're just putting the details, because like Fern even says like, hey, since I've been a direwolf in EXU, would I know, like, would I recognize like these are for sure direwolf marks? Like, would I recognize like the leftover pheromones or whatever? And Matt was kind of coy with it. Was like, no, you wouldn't. Sorry, like it's been too long. You can't smell anything. So just that level of mystery makes me wonder if it's a red herring. Like, we know there was a direwolf attack down the street. We don't, even though it's strange that it happened, but something different possibly happened to Gurge. We know it wasn't. We presume it's not the Shade Creepers, because he does mention that the claw marks seem stronger than Matt says the Shade Creepers that you've encountered so far.
Yeah, and there were no tunnels.
Right,
either.
exactly.
But I think Sirach just said she heard about it. So like she didn't even see the direwolf attack down the street or wherever it was. So like maybe that was all just like a made up story to cover for whatever happened here.
Right. Oh, okay. So that's interesting. Like maybe the Wardens are lying. There is no direwolf, but they just said that. Because that was the other detail. I was like, that's so weird. Is how would the direwolf get up here? Because you have to take a cable car to get to the Smolder Spire.
Right.
So not that there wouldn't be like other ways to get up to the Smolder Spire from the jungle, but that would be interesting if it's just like, the story told to the people when actually something else is happening. So,
but there were claw marks.
Yep, there were claw marks. It does, and the house was. I mean, the room was basically ripped apart too. So,
werewolf.
Interesting.
I don't know if Gurge would be the werewolf, or maybe like someone else was and attacked him or something.
Travis's true NPC.
Exactly.
I did see a theory, by the way, that maybe Travis is just playing versions of all his old characters. Like we're going to see like an old Grog at some point.
That would be interesting.
So, yeah.
We talked briefly about this last time, but and I don't even know what I'm talking about. So let me just throw that disclaimer out there. But the whole trademark thing makes me think that this probably is his main character.
Yeah, that's true. But someone else, another commenter on our channel said that, they trademark any merchandise they plan to sell. And so since it's the holiday time and, the variant of chutney from the Christmas one shot, maybe they want to sell like some chutney gear or something for the holiday, which maybe that's a little too neat and tidy. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I'm like 70-30. It's his character.
Yeah.
But if it's not, we're just saying from the get-go that we always thought it wasn't.
Exactly. Cover all bases.
Yeah.
So. Okay, so we don't really know what's going on there. Something shady though. And let me just recap what we do know about Gurge, or at least we think we know, is that one, he's not a halfling. Like, I mean, not that he would need to be, but Chetney did say that he was like the same height as Ashton. So like, I guess this is just stupid, but I got like elves in the brain from the whole Christmas one shot, and clearly Chetney is like he makes toys and he's a halfling or gnome. Sorry,
yeah, he's a gnome.
He's a gnome.
He's a gnome.
So I meant to say gnome every time I just said halfling in the past 2 minutes. But so he's a master craft. Is he a Okay, I know I'm going crazy right
he's
here.
He's an MC.
Chetney, he just like when he first said it, I felt like he was kind of weird about it. They're like, "Are you one?" And he was like, "Yeah."
Yeah.
So I mean, I think he is too, but I'm just not like 100%. But so he was a master craftsman that was part of a guild when he got kicked out. It was not wanted anymore.
Right.
And then is it that same guild that hooked him up with Gurge? Or did he, or
It seems like, yeah, I think he said that they sent him here to meet up with Gurge, who's going to connect him with another group. He was, I mean, it's hard to track it because, I mean, even the party pointed out, like, hey, man, like, we want to help, but like, you're being really weird about this.
yeah.
Like, I know it's your backstory. You don't want to spill it all right away, but like, we need something to go on
Yeah.
here.
It's
But Orm does say, like, hey, is this a painful subject? And he's like, yeah, it kind of is. And so, maybe, but he does later mention that he wasn't wanted anymore. So, but that seems to be the connection, though.
And so Gurge is, for whatever reason, a middleman that can help a master craftsman find a new job.
Right.
But is Gurge himself a master craftsman? Because there were comments made on like the beauty of the furniture that was overturned inside. And I don't know if that was just Travis like building up his character as like noticing, oh, like I love this furniture. Or if that was like, no, Gurge is also a master craftsman.
Yeah, I took it more to mean that Gurge was someone who is like subtly from money, like has really good connections, like because it seems like the Smolder Spider is kind of presented in my mind at least as like a bit of a rougher part of Dressar. They even mention like the layer of ash that kind of just sits over everything from like the big smokestacks from the factory or what have you.
Yeah.
And can't be a great quality of life, right? And so I took it to be like maybe it is this person is a master craftsman himself. I took it as a more subtle like, oh wow, this person's has good taste, I guess. But Cheney does also mention since all the furniture is broken, he's like, this is why I don't do furniture anymore, is because people don't appreciate it, they
Yeah.
break it. So
And it's just his office. He usually
right,
stays in the wild, which is kind of weird. We
yeah,
don't know his race, right? Was that ever said? I just remember
I
him
don't think
being the
so.
same height as Ashton, but I don't remember a race
I
ever
don't think
being
so. All
said.
I remember is same height as Ashton, and I think he described him as kind of like greasy or like not as just kind of messy,
Hmm.
like kind of a messy fellow. Um,
These things kind of play into he could be a werewolf. Like he normally stays out in the wild. He's unkempt and greasy. I don't know.
I like it. I feel like that's a fair theory. I don't feel like we're Mephistoing too hard. I mean, I think that yeah, I see the connections.
But
So
why is a werewolf being a job headhunter? I don't know.
yeah, which maybe they called it a direwolf attack, but like you said, maybe it was a werewolf, and maybe the wardens captured that person as keeping, and it is Gurge. Um, but that would also point to like the mystery that the wardens are keeping is we don't want people to know there's a werewolf in town, because it does seem like also like the wardens are or my perception is that they'd also be a bit aware of like the gossip in the town and like kind of like the overall like sense of like stress, because like Sirach even mentions like, yeah, there was an explosion in the core spire, and they're like, oh, do we know about that? Was and just pointing to like that original like wow of like magical energy that the uh, furniture came to life from in the first episode.
Yeah,
So maybe they just don't want people to panic. I guess I'm not sure.
that's true. And people are unhappy with them, given that notice board parchment we were talking about earlier. That they think people think they've lost control of the city and aren't doing anything about anything. Um.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, it's really just shots in the dark right now because we really don't have anything else to go on. But definitely very interesting that I don't know, because even if he's a werewolf, I guess I don't know enough about like the world to know if like are werewolves just like another race, like just like another normal thing, like there's half orcs,
Yeah.
there's vampires, there's werewolves, or is it like oh, like that a werewolf that is a threat, like regardless of and so maybe that's why they're
Or
being weird.
or if it's like a sickness, like
Yeah, yeah,
lycanthropy. So
true.
that'd be another angle with it too.
Mm,
So when you get infected. But
yeah,
so you mentioned the notice board and like the people who seem to be unhappy with the status of the town.
yeah,
I was intrigued by this Paragon's call, and especially how the note specifically pointed to the Hubat Corsairs as like the reason
Yeah.
like things were so bad. And I think it's pretty safe to assume that the Hubat Corsairs are, maybe we would assume, like morally good, like have well-intentioned purposes. And I say this because of past interactions with them and even them being described as kind of Robin Hood-esque, but also Cyrus's story of,
Yeah.
I'm in debt 20 grand of gold. It's an inexorbitant amount, and they've protected me and taken care of me. That seems like an idealistic, like organization driven by like wholesome values. I don't know.
Yeah, but they're not afraid to get their hands dirty,
Right.
on the same token, because they did take care of someone that was like after Cyrus,
That's
and
right. Because Cyrus is like, oh no, they they sent him to the farm uptown. I'm like, do you really think that's what happened?
yeah, and
And
he's
he's
like,
like,
oh
oh
no,
gosh.
did they kill somebody?
Yeah.
Which they probably did, because
Yeah.
we haven't really seen them come due on any of these threats, but they got collateral from everyone on the team, and we're like, if
Yeah.
you mess with us, we're gonna kill your dad, type of thing. So maybe they're all talk, but even if they aren't, like even if they do get their hands dirty, they do seem to be like, I don't know if good is the right word, but
Yeah.
like
Higher. Yeah. What is the phrasing we would use for it? Yeah. Good's not the right word. It's
they have like the best interests of their community at heart. Like, they're not
yeah.
like in it for wealth, I guess, or
Right.
power. Like they have good intentions, I guess.
Yeah. And the ends justify the means. So
Yeah.
like we'll get our hands dirty if it advances our overall mission, I guess.
Yeah. So
So
it would make sense then that if the Ivory Syndicate wasn't mentioned at all in any of this, but if they are part of the infected decorum or whatever, the people higher up in the city maybe want this to be dealt with, and so maybe they're at the point of like, yo, let's bring in the Paragon's Call to take these people out.
right.
So the rich man's response to Robin Hood, I guess.
Right. Right. I mean, I actually wonder if the Ivory Syndicate and the Paragon's Call are somehow like related or connected.
Yeah,
Maybe Paragon's Call is kind of like the face showing side of the organization, and we take coin and we get the job done, and then the Ivory Syndicate is sort of the more underbelly, underhanded, blatantly violent, all those other descriptors we've gotten from them. Because otherwise it does feel a bit clunky to have, oh, here's another organization. But then again, I mean, Dressar, if it's, in the middle of this jungle, I mean, maybe it'd be a very lucrative game to be the one to control it. So
Yeah.
I guess it would make sense if there was a entirely third entity being invited in. So,
Yeah.
um,
It, there's a lot of threads at play here, and it'd be interesting to see how it fans out. But I did think it was kind of weird that there's been like an absence of the Ivory Syndicate mentioned in any of this thus far. Like,
right.
we originally thought that was like the bad guy painted for us, and they've been just completely, I mean, they may be the ones pulling the strings, they may be the Paragon's Call, but they've been weirdly absent from any of the political stuff going on.
Right.
Okay, so I want to talk about Cyrus and all of that.
Yeah.
And there's a lot to cover there, but I'm just gonna start with the bounty, since we were kind of just talking about that,
Yeah.
and just kind of recap like what exactly we think happened. He was hired because he's out for the first time in his life, living life, ran out of money. He's like, oh,
wants to make his own coin. Yeah.
yeah. He's like, I got to make some money. So he like started being an escort, which he said, and everyone made fun of him. He's like, no, like with my sword, like I protect. And so he got hired to escort this caravan, and
with a box included that is owned by someone with the initials JH.
JH. Apparently it had a golem inside. But, and correct me if I'm wrong here, what I took this to mean is that he was not the only person escorting this. There was a whole like band of people hired to escort
it seemed
this.
like it.
And that band are the bandits. Like they betrayed.
Yeah, he said, he has a line where he says, I didn't know that basically they were in on it. I didn't know if he was referring to some of his people who was with him, because how else do you know the name Nova,
right?
of like this band of thieves? I don't know if he meant that or if he was pointing to like the golem itself. Like we didn't know that the golem was part of it because it seemed like when the attack happened, the golem activated, broke out, and was assisting the thieves.
I think it was the former because I think there was something said about Nova issuing commands. So I think he like took control of the golem.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So
yeah, and so I guess Cyrus then was left as the fall person.
The fall guy. So yeah, he was hired with these guys. Unbeknownst to him, all the other guys were like, this was all set up. They stole this golem from, well, I guess not, we don't know if it's from JH, but JH marked golem and just got away. Left him alive.
Which is yeah. We're like, we should probably kill that guy.
Yeah, which I guess maybe
like, you're good.
To be the fall
maybe they
guy.
needed a fall. Yeah, right.
And this was all the caravan that was being escorted was at the Treshy guilds or
Gold
something.
Guild.
Gold Guild.
The Gold Treshy Guild.
Yeah, which
it's House Treshy's Gold Guild.
Yeah, House Treshy, which
I took as like a mercantile, like a traders guild of some kind.
Yeah, and I forget who it was at the table, but somebody was asking about like the houses and stuff, and Matt clarified that like yeah, there are like powerful houses, and some of them control guilds, and sometimes multiple guilds. And so we know that Treshy at least has a gold guild or whatever, and also a Mason's guild. So this is a very powerful family. I wonder if they're one of the Mahan houses, or if they're not related to Drusar, although they seem to be.
Yeah, right.
So yeah, so he got left with the bill there, and now everyone wants him. It's crazy to me, and you already pointed this out, but that the Corsairs have not like double crossed him and turned him in for that money. You know, you think that would be like an ends justifying the means type of move for them.
Yeah, and maybe it's less about him and even like protecting their own, and it's more about who they know ultimately wants the gold. Like if they know this JH person, or like since they seem very stuck on to use my own phrasing, kind of like taking back Dressar and identifying the people who are part of the Chandri Quorum. I keep wanting to call it the charcuterie. The Chandri Quorum. It does feel like, again, going with that like whole Robin Hood perspective, like down with the elites, down with those individuals. And so maybe it's more about that, is we don't want to see them win or advance their mission more than we want to see one of our own be killed or something. That's my take on it, only because but it could also be just as simple as like, yeah, he's one of ours, and
yeah.
So
I wonder, they obviously trust him, like he's a trusted member. I wonder who he gave his collateral, and like what if the Corsairs know his true identity, like as far as being prince isn't the right word, but a prince of the Silken Squall, basically.
Yeah. What's up with the Silken Squall, man? I'm like trying to visualize this. I'm like, what's going on here? Which I don't know if you want to say more about the bounty.
No, that's pretty much it. I just kind of wanted to parse it out again to make sure I was seeing
maybe one
correctly.
Last detail is this JH person from the letter. Ashton seems rattled about it. He doesn't want the party to know more about it, and he's twice now said like, we just need to kind of wait and see how things play out.
Yeah, he's been really secretive about that. So they didn't mention this in this episode, but 2 episodes ago, he's like, I got to go talk to somebody like by myself. He still hasn't like made time to do that. So I wonder if he will.
Right.
Coming up now that there's this like new connection to it.
Right. Yeah, okay. So Cyrus Wyvernwind, Silken Squall. What's your take on all this?
Yeah, so the Silken Squall is like this floating tent city that is the home to the heir Genasi. I think I said Ashari in our last episode, so I'm trying to make sure I don't say that again. So yeah, like we kind of have talked about, that apparently they're like the heir Genasi as like a race are like wanderers, so maybe they don't have like a home per se, and so the Silken Squall kind of serves as this like oasis for them in the world. And for whatever reason, Dorian's parents and like his whole lineage, I guess, has always served as like these advice givers. Like I think somebody said oracles, which
Mhm.
I didn't really get that. I mean, I think it was maybe as a joke, like oracles didn't see that coming. But I don't know if they got that impression that they literally like have the gift of foresight. I think they just are
Yeah,
like
I think they seem to be understood leaders. Even I think even calling them like sage-like might be even a bit of a misnomer. I mean, he does say people come to them for advice, that they kind of give direction. But it's more pronounced than that, in that even Robbie, as he's explaining the dynamics of his mother and father, he says they rule together. They share power equally. So there
right,
definitely is like a ruling leadership element to this beyond just like, oh, that's the person we ask all our questions to, like
right,
the smartest person in town. Like it's like
yeah,
no, like they and it's interesting that Dorian is so like resistant to like embrace that description of like,
yeah,
we're not royalty, I'm not a prince, don't call us that. Because I think Imogen's like, okay, bye, your highness. And he's like, don't do that. But it could also be he's just, very humble. I mean, that's kind of
yeah,
how I like his character as a bard, is that he is not like the stereotypical bard, I guess, but actually a bit like step back. And so it could be just that more of his personality is the reason why he's been like that. So, and it is like a more deliberate, like royal, he even uses phrasing like, yeah, Cyrus says you'd be next in line. Like,
right, yeah. There's even
oh,
like a succession type of thing.
right.
So they seem to be treated as royal or noble at the very least. And yeah, they just are this home base for all Air Genasi, I guess, and give advice and lead the
Mhm.
people. I don't know, but it's
Float around,
yeah.
you know?
Which this calls back to something that Robbie actually said in EXU about like when his people fell. So, we originally speculated that maybe they at one point had like a floating city that fell, but
Mhm.
they currently have a floating city. So maybe that's not exactly what he meant, but maybe he meant like way grander scale, like when the Air Genasi fell. And so now all they have is this floating tent city, whereas maybe they previously had like a kingdom or something.
Yeah, I kind of wondered if this was like the only one left.
It seems that way, yeah.
Yeah, so that makes sense to me, and so there's a natural, like, prestige around it and appreciation for it. There was a detail I was gonna say about that. Oh, so, the fact that it's kind of floating all over the place, and it seems like it's not just Marquette, it seems like, is it just Marquette, or can it
I don't
go?
think so. I feel like it could be anywhere.
Okay, okay, yeah. Um, it was a great callback to EXU where he first tells the fake story to, Darian,
Hmm.
Matt Mercer's character in EXU, about being, like,
Dariax.
traveling Dariax, dang it. Being traveling, carnies, basically, I can't remember what it was.
Yeah, yeah.
And, so you know how, like, when the carnival comes to town, it's travels around and it's like, "Oh, where's it gonna go next?" And it was a really nice, uh, metaphor, I guess, is he's talking about, yeah, traveling circus,
Yeah.
and here is this floating city that travels that, you never quite know where it's going, where it's gonna be. So it was actually an interesting callback.
Yeah, that is like the imagery that it evokes in my mind is this floating tent city. I'm imagining like this majestic like almost circus like kind
Yeah,
of
like
setup.
the big tent or
Yeah.
something, or yeah, the big striped tent.
Yeah, which now that you bring back that story from EXU, which it could just be like 90% of it we could chalk up to him just messing with Dariax in that moment. But I don't really know how to reconcile like the themes he implied in that story with what we know now because he was talking about like how his father had like a hit out on him and is like was on the run basically and he's like I'm on the run because if they find out who my dad is, they're going to want me. So, I mean, I
I think
guess
I
I
think
don't
he was
know.
ascribing to Dariax's like good nature and being like, well, you better not tell anyone about me because it would
Yeah.
hurt someone I really care about. And it was more of just like trying to keep Dariax subtle and quiet than like making another connection, which I
Yeah.
say that it could be 5 episodes from now. We find out that the reason that the city moves is because they're trying to evade,
Yeah.
someone. But
It would be
then again, it doesn't
interesting.
seem like it'd be hard for them to find it. I mean, they're like,
Right.
"How would
Yeah,
you get
it
back
seems
home?"
like
And
a
he's like, "Oh,
spectacle.
yeah, it'd be easy." So I don't know.
Um, but so okay, so Silken Squall, in a way, de facto kind of leaders of the Air Genasi. We know that his brother is next in line to, I guess, take on that role when his parents either step down or die, I guess. And Dorian is next, which, that's what's something Cyrus talks about. He's like, you're next in line if this bounty, something happens to me.
Right.
Um, but Cyrus talks about how, when Dorian initially left, that everyone was like very hurt by this. And he was like, I was told to feel as if it was a betrayal. But then I'm trying to reconcile that. Like, why would he be so, um, like, I don't know the right word here. Like, why would they take such offense to that if Air Genasi like take this pilgrimage and even his parents did, which we come to find out. Like, so I wonder why it was such an offense for him to do that, and like to the point where his brother was like told to feel like, hey, he betrayed our family, like, be mad at him type of thing.
Yeah, I took it to mean like parents in their younger days had done this pilgrimage and now like in their older wisdom want to like shelter their kids and like protect their kids even against like the understood cultural um expectation that the kids should do. And it seems like even with that there is, whereas maybe the Air Genasi in previous years were a bit more unstructured and wandered, that um now the parents are really have like this very stringent vision for them, even to the point where both of them, when they talk about why they left, they said they couldn't bear the weight of the responsibilities. Like there were
Yeah,
so many things they weren't trying to run from their parents. There was so much expected of them, and so that even makes me wonder of like, maybe their parents have just, overly created this sense of like what you do as one of our own, and sort of like glossed over, painted over like some of that cultural history there. So that's kind of my take on it, even to the point of like when Dorian finally did take this pilgrimage, he was apparently always meant to take, that
right.
the parents even sort of hypocritically were, oh, we shouldn't do that. Like that's messed up that he did that.
Yeah.
Your son really sucks. So
Yeah, but yeah, I found that all interesting, and there was one name dropped, Zenuto or Zenato, that Cyrus referred
yeah.
to, which I don't think we were given any type of context on who that was, but so I imagine it's just like a family friend or an advisor, like probably someone who's,
Yeah,
go ahead.
I envision like the medicine dude from Dune. Just like part of the family, kind of like the family doctor or something,
Yeah,
like the wise guy.
yeah,
It's like, oh yeah, when you were all
just
younger, and it's like, wait, what?
yeah, just like an advisor or something that I guess clearly knew his parents back when they did it, or at least knows of it when they did it. Um, but yeah, so then Cyrus, copies Dorian and also leaves because they make the great point of how are we supposed to lead if we don't have any worldly experience.
Right.
So, um, uh, I guess part of me just wonders like how much of an insult, if that's not the right word, but how much of like how mad are their parents, or is this like an understood thing that they kind of knew was coming at some point? And um, I guess I just don't. I'm wondering like since Dorian left, he cites these responsibilities that like he didn't feel ready for.
Right.
Being second in line, what were his responsibilities? Like, was he just talking about like on the off chance that
Yeah.
something happened to his brother? Like, I wonder what was expected of him since his brother's the one that's seemingly taking the throne, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, and maybe he's being a bit not self-aware, a bit ignorant to himself, where maybe that's the story he tells, but deep down he was tired of being in his brother's shadow and just wanted to make out his own trek.
Yeah,
Whether he's like kind of come to terms with that or not, he does mention the offense of the uniqueness of his decision being basically now shared by his brother, who also, it's like, oh wow, so you also left. You didn't
yeah.
get to be the one
Couldn't let
to.
me have this.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, I wonder if maybe that's part of it too. That he tell, oh yeah, it was really hard. Like I was kind of ready for something different, or I needed to do something different. But deep down, it was like, yeah, I didn't want to live in his shadow anymore. Like I needed to be my own person. So I don't know.
And then one final thing on this. I mean, unless you have more.
No, yeah.
It's interesting that we know that the way Cyrus talked is like he's doing this to get out in the world, get experience, but it seems like he obviously plans to return at some point. Um, Dorian, I don't think we have that indication yet. Like, has he? I don't think nothing he's ever said has made me think that like this is just a
He
temporary
wants to go
thing
back,
until I
right?
go back. Like, I don't know if I'm confident to the point to say like he never wants to go back, but I just feel like it's interesting that we don't know either way. Whereas Cyrus, has made it clear that like he's doing this so that he can be a better leader.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that he's been established as a guest character, a guest star, and it hasn't been like overtly stated, like, "Hey, we really like him. We're going to keep him for good," makes me worried for Cyrus's future.
Oh
Especially
man,
the line from Cyrus on,
you're next.
"Hey, if something happens to me, you're next." And so I wonder if this is like laying the tracks for his departure on the show. So
That would
that's
make
where I'm
sense.
fearful of this going.
That would make sense for a reason for him to be like, I gotta go. Like, I gotta go back home.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm. I hope not, but it does seem to be that he is firmly in like the guest category ever since the
Yeah,
intro and stuff. So
which is too bad because everyone I've talked to, that was another thing my wife was like devastated with. She was because she hadn't seen the intro yet, and so we watched it last night, and she was like, "What's up? Like, what? Why wasn't Robbie in it? Like, what was that all about?" And I was like, "Well, because he's a guest character." And she was like,
what?
"It's like the what's the so do you know you're drinking
Yeah.
decaffeinated coffee crystals?"
What?
The what's the actor's name? Chris
Chris
Farley,
Farley, yeah.
the old SNL skit,
Yeah.
and she was like, "What?" And I was like, "Yeah, he's a guest character." And she was like, No. Yeah, she's really upset by it. So it seems like people really love Robbie Damon, and
Yeah.
so I mean,
But
I'm all for him.
we don't know what it means. Like, that they're a super established thing at this point that they've been working on for a long time. So it's not like they're just gonna invite a new person to immediately be like an equal member in that fold. So maybe he will
Right.
be permanent at some point. Maybe it's his own schedule that made him be a guest. And even if he leaves, I bet he comes back. I bet he has like arcs on the show, if at least. So I
That'd
mean,
be awesome. Yeah, if they making their way downtown and a giant tent city passes over you.
Yeah,
We gotta get up
Robbie,
there.
can you join us at the table?
Yeah.
That would be awesome.
So he represents the city. It's a speaking city. So, but yeah.
But yeah, that's pretty much all I had is that he hasn't made the indication that he intends to go back. But yeah, you make a great point. That seems like a
Yeah.
perfect segue into him exiting the show for a while.
Mhm. What else? What else stood out to you?
Let me
I
check
guess
my
check my
notes
notes
really
too.
quick. Um, I did. This isn't like a whole new subject of conversation or anything, but when Dorian gave Cyrus the sitting stone, I was just looking at Laura because like I think I've mentioned this before. She's just very like her character from campaign 1, which really I think is just Laura herself, is like always like wanting to make sure they get the best deal on things at the stores and is like very particular about the gold. So I could just see her being like, "Oh, you're giving away the sending stone to an NPC."
We
And I
finally
just thought
had
that was
both of
funny.
them, and now it's gone.
Yeah. So I thought that was
Yeah,
funny.
yeah, it's funny.
Um
No, great episode though for sure.
yeah, but so I think I mean the two main things here were the
Mhm.
Chetney and the Cyrus. I don't know why
Yeah,
I said the in front of both of their names,
yeah.
but I think we handled
Yeah,
that.
okay,
So
okay,
yeah, I think we covered most of what I wanted to.
yeah. Well, so we'll think about like content for the show during this break. I know I'm leaving for holiday Wednesday. When are you leaving?
I'm leaving tomorrow, but I'm coming.
Okay.
So we're doing Christmas with my family early, and then I'll be back up here for Christmas with Ashley's
Oh, okay.
family.
Okay, cool. It might be good also just to do like a recap, like after like we get to like episode 10 or something, like recapping the whole story so far in like as purposely abbreviated format as possible, just for people who are trying to catch up.
Yeah.
And then the other thing we've been talking about too is pulling doing a video on our favorite theories from you guys down in the comments.
Oh yeah.
So kind of pulling up some of those that we've heard you guys mention, these details some of you've called out, and maybe doing a video on like theories we really like, rather than just shamelessly being like, we came up with that. I never mentioned it on the show, but I've always thought that Gurge was a werewolf.
That's right.
So anyway, but yeah, we'll do something like that. And then definitely still thinking about like campaign 1 rewatch and maybe like the Briarwood arc. So that's another option as well. So keep giving us feedback on what you guys want to see, and we'll go from there.
Yeah. And I guess that's pretty much it. I hope everyone has a great holiday season over this this next couple weeks. You'll still hopefully be seeing something from us, but yeah.
You guys who celebrate Christmas, have an awesome Christmas. You guys are just enjoying the season, and just hope you have great family time and good food, and just a really a great next couple of weeks. And like we mentioned, the next Critical Role episode is the first week of January, so that's when we'll see episode 9.
Sorry,
what?
I just remembered something. Okay, so I wanted to pitch this to you, which I guess we could do it right now. Games Done Quick's coming up. I think it'd be kind of cool if we did an episode on that.
Absolutely. When is that? Oh my gosh.
So it's that week, or so the Critical Role's the 6th. It starts that Sunday after that.
Oh my gosh. Yes, dude.
So not that we have to flesh this all out right now, but while I'm thinking about it, I didn't know if we should, I think it would be fun to do an episode after so we could talk about like our favorite runs and stuff. Mm-hmm. But would it be a disservice not to do something before, so that like, because if we do it after, then everybody's like, oh, I want to check this out, and it's like, well, it's over.
Right. I think we'll have to do something before. Dude, they have some stat. I know you don't look at the calendar, but
yeah, I haven't looked at it yet.
This is going to be a good one. I can already tell.
Nice.
So, and you guys who maybe haven't checked it out, gamesdonequick.com, twice a year they do a big marathon of speedrun games, and it lasts an entire week. They raise a lot of money for Doctors Without Borders. Usually it's a few $1 million. And it's just a really fun community-driven event. So definitely check that out. That's on January 9th and runs till the 16th.
We could finally cross games off our checklist.
Yeah.
We talk about shows, movies, and games.
We love games, even though we don't talk about it. So anyway, well, what are you thinking for a thumbnail?
Maybe something with Chetney, but I don't really know what.
Yeah, okay. I don't really have like a small wooden chisel or mallet around me. Or kid's toy.
We could just do weird faces. So I got the antlers on, you got the Santa hat.
Yeah. Okay.
We're phoning this one in. We're sorry, people.
Yeah.
All right. But
all right.
Perfect.
Well, keep following us on our Twitter at the Pixelists, and thank you guys so much as we wrap up 2021. Man, what's some awesome support. It's great seeing you guys in the comments and being part of what we're doing here. So thank you, and we'll catch you guys later.
Yeah, thanks so much, y'all. Goodbye.
See ya.